What
Hmm.
was the first thing you wanted to be whenever you grew up? Was there, maybe a teacher, a parental figure, a parent who asked you that question when you were young?
No, no, there wasn't too many discussions being had in my youth about what I wanted to be when I grew up. Uh, you know, uh, the influences that were predominant in my life from a very young age weren't necessarily the most positive. So I picked up a lot of bad habits growing up. They say that the first 7 years of a child's life is the most important. It's when they're soaking up a lot of knowledge and a lot of behavioral patterns that are gonna produce whatever fruits they're gonna produce later on down the line.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that some of the things that I picked up in that period of time weren't the best, I think.
Yeah, that's something that I know we've discussed on here before is like that, that developmental stage of a child's life is so impactful. I think it was
Yeah.
some religious group that they talked about how uh, give me a boy between the ages of 0 and 7 and I'll make him a man. And the whole
Yep.
premise is that like you shape your form of the world and your understanding of reality from those early years.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree with that.
Do you have like a memory of maybe the first time you thought like I need money or how am I gonna
Oh
yeah
yeah.
get that stuff they get that
Oh
ball
yeah.
rolling?
Of course. Yeah. I didn't. I grew up poor, but I didn't realize it until I was a teenager.
Okay.
Because as you're a kid, you're innocent. You don't understand anything. But when I became a teenager and I started going to high school and I started seeing kids who have stuff, you know what I mean? And then there was kids who didn't have shit,
There's like
and
a
I would just happen to
comparison
be,
game.
yeah. And that's what really opened my eyes to, okay, how is this going on? And then, okay, kids had rich parents, and then I found out about, how much people's parents make and in relation to how much my mother had made and where I grew up, and then you start, man, that started my relationship with money. It's just started as I didn't want to be ostracized by my peer group. I didn't
Right.
want to be the one. I didn't want to be the kid being picked on for having the bummy clothes and stuff. So.
Was it
And my mother, she couldn't buy any of that stuff for me. My mom, she paid the bills, and we ate, but there wasn't a whole lot of extra.
right? I mean,
There,
just from the little or I guess the awareness that I have with, single mother, upbringings,
yeah,
it's crazy how difficult it is. I mean, God bless your mom for being able to,
yeah,
get two kids going, I guess. And so that's, crazy in of itself. And so did you
yeah.
find like there was like this pressure where you needed to kind of help out your mom in the financial regards of things or
No, not so much. I was more selfish, I guess. Like I just wanted the nice clothes, and I wanted a new bike, and I wanted to go skating every weekend, and I wanted to go hang out at the mall. You know what I mean? Like because this may sound crazy, but I was never taught that to help my mom pay bills, or that just I
sure.
was never taught I was never taught that value. My mother just wasn't around, and the people that I were around, they just weren't teaching me those kinds of values. So I just became selfish at a very young age.
Well, I mean, and
So
to cut yourself some slack, like I feel like we all, at least at some level, go through that, and maybe some people just continuously go through that, where it's a very egocentric, me orientated, like where am I? How am
yeah,
I going to be perceived? Where's that next?
yeah,
How am I going to get to
yeah,
X thousand followers? How am I? It's
yeah,
all about me.
yeah, yeah. A lot of that, and then a lot of that just develops into like a severe narcissism later on in life.
Right.
Unfortunately, but I think that's where it starts at, in childhood. And if that's not checked, or some kind of consequences come that you don't learn from, throughout your journey, then later on in life that just becomes very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, and it's reminding me kind of like a big thing. I train jujitsu, and it is insane. Like you go in there knowing something, but like if you're going up a kid that's like 16 years old and he's been training since he was 2, he'll put you in a pretzel, and you're like, it'll really put your ego in line because you're like,
Yeah.
you come to realize like we all have these different beginnings, these different, we're all at different places in our journey, and whether it's with jujitsu or finances or
Yeah.
intelligence,
Yeah.
it like it really shows you, when your ego is coming into play and you're doing things for selfish reasons. I'm really fascinated about how you were able to pull off stealing 30 to 40 bikes in a night. Were these things like chained up, or were they just like sitting around?
Yeah, I had bolt cutters. I had a pair of bolt cutters with me, and I had one bicycle, or I left on foot, and then just from being a kid, I know how to ride like three bicycles at
Oh,
once.
really?
I put one bicycle on the handlebars, and I can have another one holding it out to the side like this while I'm riding one.
Jeez.
So yeah, I could steal three bicycles at once if I wanted to, you know. And so I'd throw one on the handlebars and I'd ride it to my spot in the woods where I was stashing them. I'd throw them and I'd go out and get more. And like the day before, I went out and riding on my bike and I kind of just rode around and made a mental note of where all the bicycles were that I wanted to get, you know, like all the good
Make like a
ones.
path of it.
Because I knew what was good and what way I knew like a Kmart bicycle isn't as good as like a Mongoose or a Haro or whatever. So I knew where the expensive bicycles were, you know, and I just went one night and I just got them all.
That's wild. And so that's, how did you figure out like which bikes were more expensive? Did you do research on it beforehand?
Oh, I was just into BMX
Oh,
bikes. You
okay.
know, I've been riding bicycles my whole life, and you know, all the kids know what's what when you're out there doing that. You know,
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah,
Man,
yeah.
that's pretty wild.
I think I was like 11 or 12 years old when I did that.
11 or 12. That's pretty
Yeah, I was
crazy.
11 or 12.
And so I
Yeah,
guess I guess it sounds like it was a combination of the upbringing and then mixed it with that movie that kind of just set off this chain reaction that you were like, okay, this is it.
yeah, yeah. Well, see, I wasn't taught that that was wrong. I mean, I knew it was wrong, but those kind of morals and values just weren't instilled into me growing
For
up
sure.
up until that point. You know, so you know, my conscience wasn't like there was no warning bells going off. You know, I was able to um, justify my actions and then compartmentalize all of the negative thoughts that I was having, and then just go and do whatever I needed to go and do.
That's interesting.
And that kind of just turned into a pattern throughout my life.
And so I guess the way you said that was like you would compartmentalize negative thoughts and then what you needed to do. Did you feel like there was
Yep.
like a separation that you were making in your brain with it, or
Uh, justification. You know, I would just justify myself whatever I was doing. And then like I said, compartmentalize all the bad feelings and negative thoughts, put them away, and then just commit the act.
gotcha?
Um,
And so that would
and
have
I,
been kind of like how the ego almost would it be like the ego was almost taking over in that situation?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know so much I would call it ego. It's just you know, this is what I want to do, so I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
And I mean, again, yeah, yeah.
Well, and I guess
Ego plays a part.
yeah,
Yeah,
I guess I'm pointing to the ego because in my mind, I guess I didn't vocalize it, is the attachment to like the how can I make this bigger? Like I guess you were just following something and then you were like, maybe that's where the ego came in. It was like, how do I make this bigger?
yeah.
Do you feel like there was something about like being around people in juvenile hall that like sent you down that path further, or
Changed everything. Yeah, because you know, up until this point, I had been a relatively, you know, soft, suburban upbringing.
okay,
You know, we didn't really live in that rough of a part of town. I hadn't really experienced extreme poverty in my life. You know, like a lot of these kids had. Um, I was still a hard-headed. I still had a mouth, you know, and I thought I was tough. But being put into this situation with people who were like real tough. You know, these kids were in there for like carjacking and armed robbery, and one kid set his mom on fire,
holy
and
shit,
another kid. It was crazy. Like these kids were
jeez,
nuts,
yeah,
and they were all you know they were all 13, 16. You know, it was 18. It was 13 to 18.
fuck, man,
You know, and you know what do you do? Them fucking kids ate me alive in there.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They smelled blood in the water as soon as I walked in the fucking door. They knew I was soft.
you're right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I got eaten alive in that fucking place, and that changed everything. It changed my whole attitude. I came out with a chip on my shoulder, and I just wanted to fight everybody, you know, and I just wanted to commit more crime.
would I guess you don't have to go into the specifics if you don't want to, but like,
Yeah. No, no,
was
that's
it
fine.
what happened that like made you tougher? Was it just the fact that you're around that element and you're like, oh, like I need to like almost compete with these guys? Like how did that kind of send you down a stronger, deeper rabbit or path, let's say, or negative path?
Um, it was just a reality check, man. You know, like because you're sitting around with these kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for however long you're in there. You know, so all the conversation that they're talking about, all they're talking about is selling drugs and gang banging and how they used to break into this house and steal the guns here and armed robbery over here, and then and but they didn't talk about it like it was a bad thing. They
Oh,
you know they talked about it like it was fucking like it was awesome. You know what I mean? Like it was they glorified it.
okay,
You know, they glorify all this behavior was being glorified. You know, and so here I am. I'm like 13 years old. I've
right,
never had, at previous to this point, there have been no male role models in my life at all.
right,
You know what I
right,
mean? I don't have any older brothers. No, my dad wasn't around. My uncles were just partying. They weren't teaching me shit,
yeah,
you know? So up until this point, it had been just me and figuring shit out on my own from the kids in the neighborhood and MTV and whatever. So now I have people that I'm around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're talking to me, and I'm having conversations with them. And, you know, they're teaching me about stealing cars and they're teaching me about, you know, getting money over here and doing this. You know, nobody's talking about anything positive.
right.
Nobody's talking about, you know, getting good grades in school and learning mathematics and, you know, figuring out how to, you know, because, dude, the internet didn't exist at this time. I mean, it did, but it wasn't like what it is
Right.
now. You know, kids weren't coding, kids weren't, you know what I mean? There was kids didn't want to be engineers and fucking scientists and none of that shit, you know? So it just wasn't,
You couldn't find other like material to either support or negate kind of your ideology, and so it was like this is what you
there was
have.
nothing.
Yeah.
The only influence I was getting were from these kids that I was around in what eventually ended up being a series of group homes and institutions and boysvilles and youth centers and you know through like the next 10 years of my life, I think
Man.
10 or 12 years of my life.
Which
Yeah,
is wild too, because if you got in there at like the age of 13, and I'm trying to think back when I was 13, I feel like there's a huge like what's the word I want to look for? You kind of look up to kids that are 17 and 18 a lot more than you would look up to somebody
even
that's
16,
yeah, for sure. You look up
even
you give them
16,
so much more validation or so much more like glorification than you would someone that's, 40 or 50.
because that's yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah. So you know, there it was. I was being programmed.
Right,
You know, they stuck me in these institutions because my mom didn't know what to do with me. She couldn't control me.
right.
So her solution was just to hand me over to the state
What
and hopefully they can help me out.
was it, carjacking like all you were doing for those ages 13 to 18?
A lot of home invasions. I wouldn't say home invasions because I never home invaded anybody while they were home. Thank God. But I used to do a lot of break and enterings, a lot of shoplifting, commercial burglary, you know, vandalism, auto thefts, you know, just all around fucking
The
bad
run of
dude,
the
you
mill.
know. And it was like I was never violent though. You know what I mean? Like there's violent
Right,
criminals and then there was me. You know what I mean? I was just a fucking
right,
thief. Period. I would if it wasn't bolted down, I was trying to fucking steal it.
right, right.
You know, but I never got violent. I never armed robbered anybody. You know, I never stuck up anybody at gunpoint my entire life. You know, I would never, you know, like I said, I wouldn't go in your house if I knew you were home.
Oh, I mean,
Nothing like that.
that's a pretty powerful silver lining, right? You know?
I mean, you know, I was still a scumbag, but it was like there's different
Right.
levels, and I was, you know, not saying that what I was doing was cool or anything like that, but it was like, you know,
Thankful that it wasn't worse. Thankful that it wasn't,
yeah,
the.
I wasn't the guy fucking stabbing you. You know what I mean?
And I'm
Like,
sure you,
I
yeah,
wasn't,
I'm sure you
you
were
know.
around them at some point in time too, which is the craziest part.
Oh, I plenty of the guys I hung out with were those
Yeah.
guys. You know.
And
Yeah.
was there,
So.
so then if you never went to that violent place, like, was there, going back to that like warning bell system, was there something that told you that like, this isn't for me? Like, you're kind of, and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, like, you're in this situation with these guys who are quote unquote similar to you because you're in the same juvenile hall. But was there something in your mind that like separated you that was like, well, I'm not going to do it to somebody else. I understand what I'm doing, but I would never take it to a violent place like they do.
Um, I've always felt like I was been a little bit smarter than everybody else. Um, not being, not talking myself up or anything like that, but I always knew that when I hear somebody talk or I have a conversation with somebody, I automatically know where their intelligent level is. I know how they process information, so I can kind of guesstimate how, just what kind of people they are. And I've always felt like I've had an advantage over people. Just by having a conversation with somebody, I can tell if I have an advantage over you or not, mentally.
Sure.
And just, having not maybe just maybe not based off one conversation, but based off of many conversations or based off of dealing with somebody on a daily basis. So it was like I just knew better, man. Like I knew that there was a line. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think I learned empathy, thank God, at a very young age somehow.
Right.
Because I wasn't exposed to like violence but at a young age. Like I didn't watch anybody like beat my mom up or like fighting or none of that stuff like that. That was never a part of my life, thank God. So I think I had empathy. And I think that was the one thing that really just stopped me from being a physically violent
I
person.
mean,
It's just because I could never do that to somebody. I just, like I said, I've got that switch inside of me.
what was your mindset with like, all right, like, you just got out of this high paying job. I can't find anything that's doing the same. You, kind of revert back to scamming or what you got to
Mhm.
do. What did that process look like? Like, did you need to do some research on how this was being done?
Yeah, I hopped online, man, and I just started Googling,
And all of it was there, like just,
just
hey,
start.
here's how you do this. Here's how you get.
I stumbled onto a bulletin board for fraudsters somehow. I don't remember how I got there through a couple links that somebody had posted, and I got to a message board, and then through that message board, I got to a what they called online carding forums. They don't exist anymore, but this is back in the day they did. Now it's the dark web and the onion router and all that shit. That none of that even existed
Sure.
back then. There was no dark web. There was none of
Right.
that. There was no Silk Road. This predates all of that. So there was these message boards for fraudsters, and so I signed up for every single one I could find
Yeah.
and at that time there was like this community where people just wanted to share information, so people would just write these long tutorials on how to commit crime,
That's wild.
and, and I would just download every tutorial I could, and I kept them all on a hard drive, and I would stay up for hours. I would stay up, sometimes till the sun would come up reading these tutorials, on how to commit fraud, how to commit bank crime, how to, clone credit cards, how to, commit identity theft, how to run bank scams, how to run. It was endless. Like the amount of information, it just flooded the internet back then. It was just
It sounds like you
endless.
were just mesmerized by it. Were you just really enthralled with understanding it?
Blew me
Yeah.
away. Blew me away because I just understood all of it immediately. Like it's all so plain in English in front of me, and I was like, wow, I get this. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
And I was so confident in it before I even pulled my first scam that I was going to be great at this.
Which is
You know what I mean? Like
dangerous.
I was going to be the
That's the
best.
dangerous part.
Yeah, I'm going to be the best at
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Number one, how long was this
Mm.
after like your initial research into it? Did you start like hitting your stride with it? And what did the scale of like income look
This
like?
all of this happened within the span of 1 year.
Okay.
From starting the research on carding through the virtual carding into the store carding into making credit cards all happened within the span of pretty much 1 year. So by the end of that year, I had been like, okay, I had went through everything and then finally got to the point where I was like starting the credit
Okay.
cards,
Okay. Yeah, and
you
which
know.
is damn man. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And then were you I guess you were seeing, money coming in that was worth going through this expense, worth going to this like with this trouble, this rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, man, the money because there were so many vendors online selling cards, I didn't really make that much money. I would do maybe like one or two orders a month, then three orders a month. Um, And then I remember I woke up one morning and I had 20
Damn.
orders already paid for.
Really?
Already paid for.
Was it from one
Yep.
specific person or 20 different people?
No, it was 20 different people. Like I don't know what happened. I don't know, like I had been paying for banner ads on all of these forums with my name. It was US Plastico was my name. And I was paying for banner ads and like I said, I woke up one morning, I had 20 fucking orders. That's $20,000
That's
in my account.
crazy.
I had never seen that much money before at one
Jeez.
time, ever.
What did you feel whenever that
Yep.
happened? Were you excited? Were you nervous?
I was nervous because I was like, man, this could be the feds or
Right.
something, you know. But after I processed those orders and I got those orders out and I collected all the money, um, you know, the orders just kept coming in
Uh,
after that,
yeah, like
like
the same,
crazy.
like 20 orders every month kind of thing?
It started at like 20 and then got went to 25, went to 30, and then I remember at like what I deemed to be the very pinnacle of my success. I was doing 100 orders a
Wow.
month on average. Now, not every month. Some were 50, 60, 80, but I think there was like a 2 or 3 month span one year where I did 100 orders every single month,
And you were saying that there was a
sometimes
thousand
over.
dollars per order. You weren't doing anything less than that either.
That's
Minimum.
$100,000. I was making a little over
That's
$100,000 a month.
insane.
Yep,
No,
yep.
that's
It
which
was
is an
insane.
insane amount of money for anybody to be touching or even looking at. What were you
Yeah,
doing with this money? Was it
man. I really regret not spending any of it because I didn't. I was nervous to spend a lot of it. I wasn't dumb. I wasn't gonna go out and buy a Lamborghini or go and buy a
right?
Ferrari, and then go buy a $500,000 in jewelry and go out to the club every weekend. I wasn't gonna be that
Right,
guy.
right.
You know what I mean? Like I had seen too many of those fucking guys go to prison for that dumb shit. So I wasn't gonna be that guy, you know. So and a lot of the money, all the money I had set up bank accounts using false identities.
Okay.